Last time, we built a whole new fleet of trucks to help move items around our world. And now it's time to build a new factory and start mass processing a bunch of items with the help of some processing modules. Hello and welcome back everyone. In between episodes, I did get a few things done. I did set up our little desert train over here to obviously come from the desert back to our main base. And that's dropping off our sand, terracotta and gold for us back to our warehouse, which is actually being run by our green truck that we made from last episode, which is now fully running in between our train yard pickup over here to our storage warehouse. And over in our little desert area, I have set up some chunk loaders around to make sure that things are loaded correctly in terms of exporting stuff back to the home base. Now, these do look a little bit ugly at the moment. They're kind of just sitting out in the open with our power lines. And I originally had these set up connected directly to our train stations or our truck stops, which means that whenever, for example, a truck comes by, it will come into the station and then the area is loaded in by these power loaders. But I had a very big scare this week. Problem was that I set them up. I was, just browsing the internet briefly, and then my game crashed, which, Minecraft does that sometimes. But I went to reopen my world and it wasn't loading. It was stuck. It was getting stuck at about 18%. And I hadn't backed up my world for about 2 weeks at that point. And so, that's kind of a lot of work. And so I panicked a little bit, maybe a lot. But in the end, I did figure out that these power loaders were the issue at hand. And I kind of figured it was to do with how they work with the train stations. I just had to kind of temporarily uninstall the mod so that the world would reopen again. But I opted to just go for permanently loaded ones like we have behind me. And I'll make sure to do more backups in the future. Now, as for today's episode, I want to set up a new factory kind of right next to our warehouse, probably about behind me, where I want to start mass producing a bunch of things. Because I've been doing a lot of stuff manually so far, and I probably should have done this 20 episodes ago. We're doing it now at least. And I think the first thing to do real quick is get this place covered in some grass so I have a foundation to build on. There we go. And as for the style of this building, I am going to be using a similar set of materials as I did for my warehouse storage over there, but with an ever so slightly different design in buildings. So if we get started with our door frame here, which is mostly going to be surrounded with this umber brick. I have that about 9 blocks high with some of these beams going across. And because of this weird texture bug, I always tend to place in some of our polished stone, as for some reason that one doesn't break the material. And I'm going to use some of these walls. I literally was going to call them brick walls, but I guess the walls are also brick walls. You get what I mean. And then I think I can place some more of these umber bricks on top. And I'm also going to throw in some fans, just because I like how those look for factories. As for the top of this, we'll probably just keep using our polished stone and some copycat steps just to add a little bit of trim. And yes, I have kind of learnt my lesson from the last building in terms of using copycat blocks. There's definitely still going to be plenty in this one, but not as much as last time. And then I think I want a nice big window on this side, and then a little bit of a kind of garage entrance of some sorts on the other side. So we'll start with this side first, and I do want to make sure that this wall sticks out a little bit so we get a little bit of depth to this building. I think we're going to once again use our brick walls with our beam going across here, and I think I'm going to use some of this industrial iron window panes, and not the weathered kind, just the normal kind. Fill in this area for our window and throw in some more fans for good measure. I think I'm going to actually add some of these diagonal girders, actually replace these with some copycat stairs instead, so that looks a little bit more supported. And in fact, actually I'm going to do that over here as well, because I like how that looks a bit more. Then as for our little mini garage over here, I think I'm going to pull out from the front a little bit and kind of have this slope down a little bit, as I do want a bit of a roof on top of this. We can use some more of our brick wall to come across a bit, have another brick wall on the other side here, making sure to add our polished stone at the bottom and have that slant up like the other side. And the actual garage bit itself is going to be a little bit wider than the actual building, so I'm going to quickly build what should be at the top here, just so at least that bit is mirrored with the other side. side. Throw some of these half slab down so we can put some polished stone on top. And then for the actual roof itself, I'm going to use some of these blocks from McCaw's roofs. I'm going to use some of this grey concrete roof for the edges, and then just some of this normal grey roof for the rest. And then there's that bit done. I ended up bringing it around the other side as well and adding this cute little gutter, as I like that little detail. And then as for our second floor, oh, hi truck. As for our second floor, I think I would like to use some more of our dusk bricks, which I find weirdly hard to say, and mostly just have this so we can add some more windows in. I am going to make use of our industrial iron window panes again. Then I think once again I'm going to use some more of our beams and girders to go up the sides. While I am thinking about girders, I think I'm actually going to throw down some slanted ones, the wall over here. There we go. And I think I'm going to use some of these diagonal metal supports from Design and Decor. Throw up some of these edgestone bricks so that I can place down some more of our copycat stairs to add some more of our polished stone. And then that is more or less the design I want. I just need to continue that on both sides. And there we go. There is that second floor done. I even added some glowstone lanterns at the top here for a bit of extra light. Then as for the roof, I do want it to be like a little bit rounded, or at least I don't want a completely flat roof. So for the roof, I'm going to actually use some of these hell bricks, which are made from limestone and bricks from Create Deco, just to kind of get an idea of how this roof line is going to look. And I kind of skipped ahead a little, but I essentially wanted something along these lines. But I do think the center of this could do with something maybe a little bit more interesting. And what I'm going to do is actually use some of these blocks of experience because they shine up rather nicely. Throw a flywheel in front and then add our slope blocks here. And that adds a nice little feature for the center there, so it doesn't look as empty. Would be kind of nice if it was more centered, but good enough. And now in terms of like the front kind of exterior, I think it's looking pretty good. I think I may add some of the little red industrial lamps up the doorway and window. And then realistically, it's more about starting to design the sides of these buildings. And we don't really need to reinvent the wheel for this. So I think we'll have a 5 wide situation. And most of our first floor is actually going to be just brick rather than any kind of windows and such. And I am actually going to throw in some of this verdant brick wall, some normal green type bricks, which are made out of iridium and brick. And then for our other floors, continuing with more of this cracked umber brick, and we'll probably just have 2 kind of smaller windows like so. Some more copycat steps for trims and such. And then for our top floor, have a similar situation, but with a bigger window like we have for the rest of this floor. And that's more or less the design I want. And I think now we're going to go into a little bit of a time-lapse mode while I kind of build the rest of these walls on both sides of the building. There we go, there is our more or less completed exterior to our processing facility. You may have noticed that I did use the cannon to make this a little bit faster, and that these diagonal kind of girders were not placed properly by the cannon, which I actually do think is fixed in the mod now, but I haven't quite updated just yet. But I fixed those, and I also went ahead and did a little bit of the interior walls as well, ready for us to start building stuff in here. But one thing I want to add to this wall in particular is try not to get run over by a truck. Place some chimneys down. And funny enough, I'm probably going to have to actually remove some of these girders here so that we can fit them in. And I think I'm simply just going to pull out from the building here, perhaps not quite that far, and build up a little bit of a brick base to begin with, and then use some more of our verdant wall here to make it look a bit more interesting, and then continue our little bit of trim around. We're gonna have to use some bites for some of these corners over here, and luckily the texture kind of continues through them, so it looks pretty good still. Gonna add a little bit of this industrial iron bars, which conveniently does fit right on the edge of this because it is meant to be in the middle of the block. And then as for the chimney itself, I'm probably going to have a kind of 3x3 situation. Thanks to the fact that these bricks do come in stair variations, so I don't need to use copycats, I'm definitely going to use them a lot in this particular build. And have some girders going up, meeting up to probably some industrial plating up here. And then use some of these dusk bricks going even further up, or adding some more polished stone. And then I've come up with maybe a little bit of an odd design for the rest of this chimney, and that does involve a bunch of flywheels. And I did do something similar to this over at the concrete factory. What I'm essentially going to do is place down a flywheel and actually place some bricks down, although preferably facing the right way. A bit like that, and have that all the way around so that we can only see that much of it, and then more or less kind of continue that idea but going up with the different colors and just having some stairs placed on each level. And yeah, basically the idea of that was to kind of give it a slightly more rounded look, at least of what's possible with the current mods that I have. And then I also added some of these cage lamps on top with a little campfire on top to add a little bit of a smoke effect. And now I do want to add a second one, but what I think I'm going to do again is do a bit of a time lapse, add our second chimney in, get our roof done, and add a little bit of foliage and stuff. That way we can get this building ready for all the create stuff that we need to do inside. Okay, and there is our exterior finally actually done. I did have to make a few small changes since the time lapse. I had to redo some of these parts of the roof as there was a little bit of a bug with the copycat blocks, but nothing too major. And of course, I also got in a bit of a floor down as well. And now it's actually time to start making some of our processing facilities. I think I'm going to start with our smelter, smoker, haunter, washer kind of situation. And each one of these sections in the wall is going to be about how wide each one of our modules are. So let's start planning this out a little bit. It's going to be the general footprint of it. And then I'm going to throw some girders down for aesthetic reasons. There we go. And then even add some of these little lanterns to go on each side to light up the area a bit. And then for the actual setup itself, we're going to place down our fans with a little bit of a gap in between, mostly just so it fits. And then I'm going to quickly put some blocks here so that we can place down our soul campfire for haunting, water for washing, our campfire for like cooking, and lava for smelting. Then if I just bring up the floor here a little bit and place down some chests with some smart chutes on top and connect a packager to both of these. And then I'm just going to place down these frogs for now until I actually set up my chain drives. Going to throw up some glass in between so that when I remove these blocks, nothing leaks out. Although what I'm also going to do is actually place some copycat panels here and put some framed glass in those as well, so that the water and lava don't kind of stream towards the smart chutes. And of course I need a way to actually input our items into this. So I'm going to place down some chutes, put some barrels on top. We'll add our packages behind and some frogs on top. And that's the general gist of what this module is going to look like. I'm going to have to set up some specific things, like for example, with these smart chutes, I need to set up some attribute filters so that items only go into the filters when they are ready to do so. And so the first one we're going to do is I'm actually going to grab some sand as our reference item. And then you can scroll down here and you can see can be washed as an option. So I'm just going to add attribute to the list. I'm actually going to delete that a second and actually do the opposite attribute to this list. So it cannot be washed. Then we can place this filter onto here. Any items going down there will only go into the filter if they have already been washed. Then the same thing goes with the haunter. I'm going to add sand as a reference again for can be halted, do the same thing, place that here as well. For our kind of cooking thing, I'm going to actually use some kelp as our reference because it's actually smoked. Once again, same thing, add that to there. And then the last one, once again, we can actually use the sand, can be smelted, opposite attribute, and place that there as well. Also, apparently high rendering merchant. So that's the smart filter setup, and that's pretty much what we need. All I need to do now is set up some power for this thing. I think we're just going to clear out the back here and add our encased chain drives, and then figure out how to actually get power into this building. And I already have this power line over here, which kind of jankily goes through the wall into our storage, but I think I need to add a proper system finally to this area. And honestly, I think that might just be me putting the power underground, because I'm kind of fed up of having to deal with all the different power lines. So let me do that real quick. And there we go, there is our power hooked up. We can see our fans spinning around. And what I ended up doing is just putting a bunch of chain conveyors under the ground, pretty much where our rail lines go, which is, you know, not that unrealistic to real life, but maybe a bit unrealistic. And now we also don't have the ugly power line going across the train tracks as well, although apparently I missed one, so let me just grab that. Now I'd actually like to hook up these frogs to some kind of chain system. I am going to temporarily add some girders over on this side for a good reason. That's because I essentially want to use these as a kind of support for our chain conveyors. And I am going to just hang them above everything else just a little bit. Make sure to make that a industrial iron one. And then use our girder struts, or our diagonal girders, whatever you want to call them, to kind of hold them up. And we can do that pretty much on all parts where the girders kind of line up with each other. Connect the conveyors up. Actually start placing some of these frogs down. And these ones are going to send packages, and we don't need to name them or anything, but we are going to need to place some signs on our packages down here, and we need to just call this store items. Of course, do that on both of them. So any items coming out of these chutes go into the chest and then get pulled out by our packager and into our frogs. Now I actually need to make sure that these are powered so that they will actually just go straight in. And then I'm probably just going to add a panel on these sides just to kind of cover the hole up. And then for our chain drives here, till the rest is set up, I'm going to bring the chain drives out to about here and get this stuff connected up to our storage. This is probably going to look a little bit ugly at the moment until I figure out a proper solution how to do these chains in between. But at least this gives us a connection to our storage. And then I also need to hook up these frogs to our chain conveyor as well. And these ones are definitely going to have to be named. And this one is our washer, so I'm probably literally just going to call it washer. Gonna have our haunter one, smoker, as well as our smelter. And before I give this a test, I actually need to change this attribute filter, because what I also want to do is actually make a list filter and grab our stone here and also our attribute filter. Because stone can actually effectively be smelted into smooth stone, and I don't actually want that. So I had to make an exception where stone can also fit into there. And we can obviously place our frog back. And now let's actually head back to our storage warehouse. What I'm going to do is actually come to Nicola over here, and I'll need to set up a proper clipboard for this. But I'm just going to type in smelter for now, and I'm going to send a couple of stacks of cobblestone. So in theory, this box should be heading out the back, which it did. It's going all the way along there, and is picked up by this frog, drop down into here, and then once those have smelted, they go down, the frog gets it, and they are being sent back to our storage system, and you can just see them going down the belt and up into our shipping container likely here. So that appears to all be working rather nicely. Now for this next module, I'd like to do a bunch of presses. So we're going to do a similar setup to the other side with this module here. And this one's probably going to be a little bit more simple to set up. So I'm going to place down my 5 smart chutes first with some depots on top and our presses on top of that. Rotate these around just to make sure that they're facing the right way. And I'm actually going to set up a belt behind here, because what I essentially want to do is place a bunch of funnels going into the depot. And up here, we're going to place a barrel down with a packager going into it. Of course, a frog to also connect to that packager, and we'll just call this presser. And then I'm going to place a brass funnel on this barrel so that it drops any items that are going into it straight down, and it can be evenly distributed between all our different presses. Now I have to remove some of this floor again so that I can add a vault and another chest. So I can once again do the packager trick and hook up these frogs to go back to our main storage. And then we can, of course, once again cover up the gap with some copycat panels. And then as for our smart chutes here, I once again need to set up an attribute field for it. And the best way to do that is grab an iron sheet for our reference and see if it's tagged C plates and add that to our list. And then also, because we use Create Deco, which have their own system, I'm going to add our industrial iron plate as well and add that as well, just to make sure that it's all working rather nicely. And so I've duplicated that 5 times, and I'm just going to place these all on our smart chutes. I need to once again add our levers down here so they get automatically placed back into our storage. And I need to come down here and set up the power to bring up to the top and bring that power through to the inside. Although I've got to reverse the direction of that. There we go. And then in order to power the presses up here, I'm going to actually use a case chain drive along with another gearbox. And then I'm going to actually use these cogwheels from Create Bits and Bobs as well, so that we can then chain those together, and that powers the top part as well. And I kind of rather like seeing the chain in the background there. And then just for the sake of aesthetics, I think I'm going to place these all with their industrial iron variants. Go. And then I actually thought about placing this back wall here, though I suppose I can use my mech trowel. But I wanted to replace the back here with this striped yellow concrete. Just add a little bit of color into the background, and like, oh, danger, warning, or whatever. And now all I gotta do is give this a little bit of a test run. Once again, go back to our storage, and we have some iron, so I'm gonna put 2 stacks in there and take this to the presser. So that should go out back and then get dropped onto our depots. And currently at the moment, the frogs are placing them out probably a little bit too quickly. I might have to put a timer on these instead of just the lever, just so we don't have too many boxes. But that did indeed seem to work. And yeah, there we go. I placed some 10-second pulse timers instead, so it doesn't make too many packages. Now, our next module is going to be for our mixers. And I must admit, I'm not 100% sure if the way that I'm going to be making this is actually going to work. Can't find out until we try. But essentially, we're going to have 3 mixers total. We're going to have one for our water, one for just general mixing, and one for lava recipes. And the reason why I'm putting the packages on the sides of these is that I want to put some pipes into the backs of these. Although actually only our center mixer is probably going to need our blaze burner. As far as I'm aware, the water and lava recipes don't need it. So maybe we'll do them underneath after all, and place our packages around the back. And actually, these 2 pipes are probably going to end up connecting up, so I might as well go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to place the chutes next to them. And I could just use normal chutes for this, but I kind of want it to look similar to the rest. And then underneath here, I'm going to need to place our item vaults, because we're going to need to actually place some packages on those with our frogs on top, of course, and that will be exporting it back out into our storage. Gonna need our mechanical mixers, as well as some cogs to go in between them, and I'm gonna use my industrial stuff to cover those up again. But essentially, we're going to need to set up our frogs back here. This one being our water mixer, have our just normal mixer, and then our lava mixer. And my main worry with these actually is that if I send multiple different types of things that need to be mixed, I'm not entirely sure if the system is going to be clever enough to kind of differentiate between that. But all we can do is test. But I am going to quickly set up our fluids down here. There is our water and our fluid transmitter from our power station, which I must admit is still kind of a boring way of doing this, but I really needed that extra FPS. And with the help of this belt, I brought some power down to our 2 different pumps from our water and lava. So now our burner is on, as well as this mixer being filled with lava and this one with water. And bringing that power up to our iron mixers should now mean that all of this should be working rather nicely. And as a little test, we'll head back to the warehouse, we'll come up to Nicola, change this to mixer. And let's try and make some of these brass ingots. Let's just make 10. That will send our zinc and copper to our mixer. That is picked up, mixed straight away, plop down into here. And I have realized I do need to give some power to these. So let's place those. Although I have forgotten that these should only send packages. I have also forgotten to actually set some signs on these. These things only have limited sides. So I may have to figure this one out. Okay, there we go. I put the signs out on the front for the store items, as well as a lever on the back, and moved our power to our mixers away from this spot. Now, I don't know where that package actually went. I'm just going to presume it went into one of our storage things. But anyway, let's say I want to make some more pulp. The way I do that is by throwing in some oak saplings to our water mixer, and it should go into this frog, which it does. Starts getting mixed up and is now also being sent out by this frog. We'll perhaps have to figure out the timers again, but that does seem to work. I don't know how it works when it's underneath a lot of pressure, but we'll find out when we start using some factory gauges. So that's going to have to wait for next time. I am out of time this week, so we'll be continuing with this build and all the different kind of processing modules, as well as adding all of our factory gauge and stuff probably in the next episode. But thank you everyone for watching today. I appreciate it. We're almost at 4,000 subscribers now somehow. That railway lane video did extraordinarily well, and honestly so have my other two videos. So thank you everyone for the support, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye for now.